Y'all ever found love in a damn Miami rainstorm? I'm Joan Doe, your old storyteller from Hudson, New York, spinning a tale of a paper heart that sparks a fire hotter than South Beach. Picture this: a delivery driver with a kid's love in her pocket and a billionaire with a chip on his shoulder, thrown together by a storm in a single moment. It's gonna shake your soul. Folks, let's dive in. The rain slammed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Carter Reed's penthouse office like 1,000 tiny fists. A Miami downpour that turned the city into a blur of neon and gray. 30 stories up, in the heart of downtown, Reed Enterprises headquarters gleamed with cold precision glass, steel, and Italian marble that cost more than most people's homes. Carter, 38, sat behind his imposing glass desk, his gray-green eyes fixed on a spreadsheet, the numbers as lifeless as the air-conditioned hum around him. His tailored navy suit was crisp, his platinum watch ticking away seconds he didn't have to spare. Another deal, another million, another day running an empire he'd built from a hardware store kid's dreams. But the thrill was gone, replaced by a hollow ache he didn't want to name. The door swung open, and his assistant Janet's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Reed, delivery from Elite Express. Legal docs from Mitchell and Sons." Carter didn't look up. "Send 'em in," he said, his tone clipped, annoyance already simmering. People were always late, always wasting his time. Nyla Thompson stepped into the office, and the room seemed to shift, like the storm outside had slipped through the door with her. 32, soaked to the bone. She clutched a soggy package, her Elite Express uniform clinging to her frame, the logo barely legible. Her braids, usually neat, dripped water onto the marble, and her deep brown eyes, sharp despite the exhaustion, scanned the space with a mix of defiance and fatigue. She'd been hauling packages through Miami's traffic for 10 hours, dodging flooded streets and asshole customers, all to make rent and keep Zoe, her 7-year-old, in art supplies. Her sneakers squeaked on the floor, leaving wet streaks Carter noticed with a scowl. "You're dripping all over my damn marble," he said, his voice ice, not bothering to stand. "Just leave it by the door." Nyla didn't flinch. She'd heard worse today, yelled at by a lawyer for a late drop, cursed out by a shop owner over a bent box. She took a step forward, her shoulders squared, leaving another wet footprint. "Need your signature, sir. Company policy." Her tone was steady, professional, but there was a fire beneath it, a don't-fuck-with-me edge that made Carter's eyes narrow. He checked his watch, the limited edition piece glinting under the LED lights, worth more than Nyla's beat-up delivery van. "Fine," he snapped, waving her over. "Bring it here, and make it quick." She crossed the room, her steps deliberate, ignoring the way his gaze flicked over her like she was an inconvenience. Up close, Carter noticed things he hadn't expected: no fake smile, no nervous chatter, just tired eyes and a jaw set like she'd faced worse than him and won. Her skin glistened with rainwater, and the silver ring on her left hand, etched with a faint M, caught the light. She handed him the electronic signature pad, her fingers steady despite the chill making her shiver. "You're late," he said, scribbling his name with a flick of his wrist. "This was supposed to be here 3 hours ago. I don't pay premium fees for this shit." Nyla's lips pressed tight, but her voice stayed calm. Cutting through the rain's drumbeat outside, accident on I-95 shut down 2 lanes. "Mr. Reed, I called your office. Nobody picked up." She held his gaze, unflinching, her eyes daring him to argue. Carter scoffed, thrusting the pad back at her. "Excuses. Find a different route next time. I don't have time for delays. He expected her to nod, scurry off, like every other service worker who needed his business. But Nyla didn't move. She took the pad, tucked it under her arm, and looked him dead in the eye. With all due respect, Mr. Reed, she said, her voice low, deliberate. Sometimes shit happens that's beyond my control. I did my best. For a split second, Carter was speechless. People didn't talk to him like that. Not his board, not his investors, sure as hell not delivery drivers. Her words hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in truth, and something in him stirred annoyance. Yeah, but also a grudging respect. Before he could fire back, his phone buzzed. The CFO's name flashing. Big money. Bigger problems. Just go, he said, waving her off, his tone sharp. And don't be late again. Nyla turned, her sneakers squeaking, and headed for the door. As she reached for the handle, something slipped from her pocket, fluttering to the floor like a leaf in the wind, a small, red paper heart, folded with a child's care, landed silently on the marble. Carter saw it, his eyes narrowing. Wait. He called, but she was already gone, the door clicking shut behind her. He stared at the heart, its edges curling from the damp. It should have been trash, something for the janitors to sweep up. But his feet moved before his brain caught up, and he crossed the room, bending to pick it up. The paper was soft, fragile. With "I love you," Mommy scrawled in crooked, childish handwriting. A pang hit his chest, sharp and unfamiliar, like a memory he'd buried. His mom, gone 5 years from cancer, her smile fading in a hospital bed while he was too busy closing deals to hold her hand. He shook it off, but the heart stayed in his hand, warm against his palm. Carter walked to the window, the city a blur of rain and lights below. Through the storm, he caught a glimpse of Nyla, sprinting to her van, pulling her thin jacket tight against the downpour. Her silhouette was small but unyielding, like she could take on the world and win. For a moment, he felt something he hadn't in years: regret, maybe shame. He pushed it down, hard. Carter Reed didn't do feelings. He built empires, not daydreams, but as he slipped the heart into his pocket, his fingers brushing the worn paper, he couldn't shake her voice. Sometimes, shit happens beyond my control. Nobody talked to him like that. Nobody looked at him like she did, like he was just a man, not a checkbook or a headline. He pulled out his phone, dialed Janet. "Find me the delivery company from today. Elite Express. I need the driver's name. Female, early 30s, African American." Janet's voice was all business. "On it, Mr. Reed." He hung up, staring at the rain, the heart heavy in his pocket. Carter Reed didn't chase people. People chased him. So why the hell was he standing here, planning to track down a woman who'd just called him out and walked away? Nyla Thompson slumped into the driver's seat of her van, the engine coughing to life like it was as tired as she was. Rain hammered the windshield, wipers barely keeping up, and she shivered, her uniform sticking to her skin like a second layer of regret. Today had been a shit show: breakdowns, late drops, and now a run-in with Carter fucking Reed, Miami's golden boy with a stick up his ass. She checked the time. 5:45 p.m., 15 minutes to get to Bright Futures Academy before Zoe's after-school program charged her late fees she couldn't afford. Fuck, she muttered, pulling into traffic. The city a smear of headlights and neon. Her phone buzzed Zoe's teacher, reminding her about the art show Nyla had missed. Another promise broken. Her heart twisted, but she shoved it down. Just one more day, she whispered, her mantra for 5 years, since Michael's car crash left her alone with a 2-year-old and a pile of bills. One more day had become years of double shifts, skipped meals, and falling into bed too exhausted to dream. She patted her pocket, looking for the paper heart Zoe made her for Mother's Day 2 years ago. It was gone. Her stomach dropped, hands scrambling over her damp uniform. No, 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 she whispered, picturing it on Reed's pristine floor, probably swept into a trash can by now. That heart was her anchor. Zoe's love in a red construction paper. The thing that got her through nights when the electric bills screamed past due. She blinked back tears, the rain blurring the road ahead. At Bright Futures. Nyla parked and ran inside, ignoring the ache in her legs. Zoe sat alone in the hallway, her small backpack clutched tight, her art portfolio balanced on her knees. Her face lit up when she saw Nyla, brown eyes sparkling like Michael's used to. "Mommy," she squealed, launching into Nyla's arms. "Hey, baby," Nyla said, hugging her tight, the damp uniform forgotten. "I'm so sorry I missed your art show." Zoe pulled back, unfazed, her pigtails bouncing. "It's okay, Miss Jenkins took pictures. Look, I got a blue ribbon." She waved the ribbon proudly, pinned to her folder. Nyla's chest swelled, pride and guilt colliding. "That's my girl. Best artist in Miami." She kissed Zoe's forehead, swallowing the lump in her throat. As they walked to the van, Zoe's chatter filled the air school. Her friend Tyler, the dinosaur exhibit she wanted to see. Nyla half listened, her mind on the lost heart. "Zoe, you see that paper heart you made me? My lucky charm." Zoe shook her head, eyes wide. "Maybe it fell out at work. Can we go look?" Nyla pictured Reed's cold stare, his marble floor, that office where she didn't belong. "No, honey, it's gone, but you'll make me another, right?" "It won't be the same," Zoe said, serious. That one had special love magic. Nyla forced a smile, buckling Zoe into her booster seat. "Then we'll make new magic, okay?" But as she drove through the rain, the city's lights smearing like wet paint, she felt the loss like a hole in her chest. That heart was more than paper. It was Zoe's love, Michael's memory, her strength to keep going. And now it was sitting in some billionaire's trash, or worse, forgotten. Back in his office, Carter sat at his desk, the heart now on the glass surface, a splash of red against the sterile white. His phone buzzed. Marcus, his best friend and COO, probably bitching about a deal, but he ignored it. He picked up the heart, turning it over, the childish scrawl tugging at something he'd locked away. His mom's voice, faint now, telling him to slow down, to live, not just win. He'd ignored her, and she was gone. This heart, this woman, it was nothing. Just a blip. So why couldn't he let it go? He leaned back, the rain a steady roar outside, and closed his eyes. Isla's face flashed in his mind, those eyes, that fire, the way she'd stood her ground. Nobody did that. Nobody made him feel seen. Not as Carter Reed, CEO, but as a man who'd fucked up and knew it. He opened his eyes, grabbed his phone, and texted Janet. "Any luck on that driver's name?" Her reply was instant. Nyla Thompson, Elite Express, on shift till 5 p.m., tomorrow. Carter slipped the heart back into his pocket, his fingers lingering on the paper. Tomorrow. He'd find her. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And that scared the shit out of him. A paper heart just lit a spark in Miami's rain. Folks, will Carter chase Nyla, or let that fire drown? That's where this story's heading, a love that could burn down the city. Drop a comment, would you risk it all for a stranger like Nyla? Smash that subscribe button to catch the next chapter. 'Cause this heat's just getting started. The Elite Cafe sat on a gritty corner of Miami's Overtown. A squat brick building with faded awnings and a neon sign that flickered like it was one bad day from giving up. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee, grilled bread, and the faint tang of fryer grease. The kind of place where locals grabbed a quick bite and nobody cared about your last name. Nyla Thompson slid onto a cracked vinyl stool at the counter, her Elite Express uniform still damp from yesterday's rain, her braids pulled into a tight bun that matched the knot in her stomach. She'd barely slept, the loss of Zoe's paper heart gnawing at her like a bad tooth. It was just paper, sure, but it was her anchor, her kids' love folded into something she could hold when the world felt too heavy. Joe, the diner's owner, a wiry black man with a salt and pepper beard, slid a turkey sandwich her way. No mayo. Extra pickles, her usual. Rough day? Nyla, he asked, wiping the counter with a rag older than Zoe. Rough life, she muttered, managing a half smile. Van's acting up again, and I lost something important yesterday. Zoe's gonna kill me. Joe raised an eyebrow, leaning on the counter. That heart she made you, damn. Girl, you still carrying that thing every day? Nyla said, her voice softer, her fingers brushing the empty pocket where it used to sit. It's like her love keeps me going. Now it's probably in some rich asshole's trash. Rich asshole. Huh. Joe chuckled, but his eyes were sharp, reading her like he always did. He'd known her since she was a kid, back when her dad used to bring her here for milkshakes. Sounds like a story. Before Nyla could answer, her phone buzzed, an unknown number flashing. She frowned, ready to swipe it away, but something made her pick up. Yeah. Who's this Miss Thompson? It's Carter Reed. His voice was smooth, like bourbon over ice. But it hit her like a brick. The billionaire from yesterday, the one who'd chewed her out for dripping on his floor. I have something of yours. Can we meet? Nyla's grip tightened on the phone, her heart kicking up. You got my heart, she blurted, then winced, realizing how it sounded. I mean, the paper heart. Red, with my kids writing. I do, he said, a hint of amusement in his tone. I'm near Overtown. Elite Cafe. 1 o'clock work for you. She glanced at the clock, 12:45. The diner was 3 blocks from her last drop. "Fine," she said, her voice clipped. "But I ain't got long. Work don't wait. I'll be there," he said, and the line went dead. Joe was watching her, one eyebrow arched. "That the rich asshole shut up," Nyla said, but a smile tugged at her lips. "He's got Zoe's heart. Just dropping it off. That's all." "Mm-hmm," Joe said, skeptical, tossing the rag over his shoulder. "Man like that don't chase down delivery drivers for nothing. Watch yourself, Nyla." She rolled her eyes, biting into her sandwich, but her stomach churned. Carter Reed wasn't just some guy, he was Miami royalty. The kind of name you saw in Forbes or splashed across tabloids with models on his arm. Why the hell was he tracking her down? She pushed the thought away, focusing on the sandwich, the hum of the diner, the sunlight streaming through the smudged windows. Miami was baking outside, the heat shimmering off the asphalt. A far cry from yesterday's storm. The bell above the door jingled, and Nyla's head snapped up. Carter Reed walked in, looking like he'd stepped out of a damn magazine. His gray linen shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his jeans were tailored just enough to scream money without trying too hard. Those gray-green eyes found her instantly, cutting through the diner's haze like a spotlight. Heads turned locals, truckers, a couple of construction guys, but he didn't notice. His focus locked on Nyla. "Miss Thompson," he said, sliding onto the stool next to her, his voice low, warm, like he hadn't been a total dick yesterday. "Thanks for meeting me." "Nyla," she said, correcting him, her tone sharp but curious. "And you didn't give me much choice. Mr. Reed, Carter," he countered, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He reached into his pocket, pulling out the paper heart. Its edges still curled from the rain. "This yours?" Her breath caught, relief flooding her. She took it carefully, like it might crumble, her fingers brushing the familiar scrawl. "I love you, Mommy." "Thank you," she said, her voice softer than she meant, her eyes meeting his. "This means a lot, more than you know." He nodded, studying her, his gaze too intense for a stranger. "Your daughter's got a hell of a way with words. Zoe." "Right." Nyla's guard went up, her eyes narrowing. "How'd you know her name?" "It's on the heart," he said, pointing to the tiny "From Zoe" scrawled in the corner. Figured it was her. She's lucky to have a mom who carries her love around. The compliment landed like a punch, unexpected and disarming. Nyla tucked the heart into her pocket, her fingers lingering on the paper. "Yeah, well, she's my world. Don't need much else." Carter leaned forward, elbows on the counter, his watch glinting under the diner's fluorescent lights. "I owe you an apology. Nyla, I was a jackass yesterday. You didn't deserve that." She blinked, caught off guard. Apologies from guys like him were as rare as snow in Miami. "Yeah, you were," she said, her tone even, but a smile flickered. "Apology accepted. But don't think this makes us buddies." He chuckled, a low rumble that sent a shiver down her spine. And damn if she didn't hate herself for noticing. Fair enough. But I'd like to make it up to you. Coffee, maybe, or lunch. My treat. Isla's laugh was sharp, cutting through the diner's hum. You serious? I don't need your pity lunch. Carter, I got a job, a kid, and a van that's one bad day from the junkyard. No time for whatever this is. Before he could respond, the bell jingled again, and Derek Hayes sauntered in, his Elite Express uniform loose on his lanky frame. Derek, her best friend since high school, had a grin that could charm a snake. But his eyes darkened when he saw Carter. Yo, Nyla, he said, sliding onto the stool on her other side. Who's the suit, Derek? Chill, Nyla said, rolling her eyes. Carter Reed. Client. Carter. This is Derek, my work partner, an occasional pain in my ass. Carter extended a hand, his smile polite, but cool. Good to meet you. Derek shook it, his grip a little too tight. Heard about you. Reed. Big shot downtown. Huh. What you doing slumming it in Overtown? Derek, Nyla snapped. But Carter didn't flinch. His eyes steady. Returning something Nyla dropped, he said, his tone calm but edged. Nodding to the heart now safe in her pocket. Didn't think it was slumming. The air thickened, tension crackling like the heat outside. Nyla was about to shut it down when a couple of truckers at a nearby booth started talking, loud enough to carry. That's Carter Reed guy's got a new chick every week. Bet this one's after his cash. Nyla's jaw tightened, her fingers curling around her coffee mug. She'd heard this shit before on the street. At drop-offs. Whispers about a black woman in the wrong place. But here, with Carter watching, it stung deeper, like salt in a cut. She turned to him, her voice low, sharp. You hear that? Carter, that's what folks think when they see me with you. So let's get this straight. I don't give a damn about your money or your penthouse. Carter's face darkened. Not at her, but at the booth. I don't give a shit what they think, he said, his voice low, fierce. And I know you're not here for my wallet. Nyla. Hell, you're too real. And it's fucking with me. Her breath caught, his honesty slicing through her defenses like a hot knife. Fucking with you, how she asked, leaning closer, her eyes boring into his, daring him to lie. He held her gaze, unflinching. The diner's noise fading to a hum. I'm used to people wanting something from me, money. Favors, my name. You don't. You looked me in the eye and called me out. And I can't stop thinking about it. The words hung heavy, raw, and Nyla's pulse raced, her skin prickling under his stare. Joe slid a plate of fries between them, breaking the moment. But the air stayed charged. Derek cleared his throat, his voice tight. Nyla, you good? We got drops to make. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on Carter, searching for the catch. I'm good. D, give me a sec. She turned back to Carter, her voice softer but firm. You want to make it up to me? Don't waste my time. I got a kid who needs me and a job that don't stop. You in or out? In, he said. No hesitation. his smile small but real. There's a spot in Wynwood, street art walls. I hear it's your kind of thing, photos. Right. Meet me there tomorrow night. Bring Zoe, if you want. Isla's eyebrow arched, surprised he knew about her photography. "You've been doing homework on me. Read guilty," he said, his grin boyish. "Disarming. I like to know who I'm dealing with." She studied him, torn between the spark in her chest and the voice screaming to run. "I'll think about it," she said, standing, her uniform brushing his arm as she moved. "But don't hold your breath." He nodded, watching her go, his eyes tracing her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Isla grabbed her sandwich bag, Derek trailing her to the door. As they stepped into the Miami heat, the sun blazing off the asphalt, Derek nudged her. "You sure about this guy?" "Isla, he's trouble, and not the fun kind. He's just a client," she said, but the lie felt thin, even to her. She patted the heart in her pocket, Zoe's love steadying her. But Carter's words echoed in her head. "You're too real, and it's fucking with me." The diner's door swung shut behind them, but Carter stayed at the counter, the ghost of Isla's presence lingering like the heat outside. He ordered a coffee black, no sugar mostly to keep Joe from eyeing him like a stray dog. The sandwich she'd left half-eaten sat on the counter, a reminder of her rush, her life that didn't bend for him. He sipped the coffee, bitter as his thoughts, and pulled the heart from his memory. Not his pocket this time. "I love you, Mommy." Zoe's words, Isla's strength, they were a world he didn't know, one he'd never had to navigate. His phone buzzed Janet, reminding him of a 2 p.m. with investors. He should have been prepping, crunching numbers, playing the game he'd mastered. But his mind was on Isla, her fire, the way she'd stood her ground in his office, in this diner, against the whispers of assholes who didn't know her. He'd been with women models, heiresses, women who played by his rules, but none of them looked at him like she did, like he was just a man, flaws and all. Joe slid by, wiping a glass, his voice casual but pointed. "You planning to sit here all day? Rich boy Ila's got a kid and a life. Don't go messing with it." Carter met his eyes, respect flickering. "Not messin'," he said, his voice low. "Just trying to understand her." Joe snorted, but there was a hint of approval. "Good luck with that." "She's tougher than you." Carter smirked, tossing a 20 on the counter, way too much for a coffee, and stood. "I'm counting on it." He stepped outside, the Miami sun hitting him like a fist, the city pulsing with life cars honking, reggaeton blaring from a passing truck, the smell of hot pavement and salt air. He glanced at his phone. Janet's text waiting, but his fingers typed something else. Wynwood Walls, 7 p.m., tomorrow. Hope you're there. Isla. He hit send, pocketed the phone, and walked to his car. The heat of the day nothing compared to the fire Isla Thompson had sparked in him. She was a risk, a challenge, a woman who didn't need him. And that, more than anything, made him want to prove he could be more than the asshole she'd met in the rain. Wynwood Walls was Miami's beating pulse, a maze of concrete turned canvas, where murals splashed across buildings in colors loud enough to wake the dead. The air hummed with R&B from food trucks, the sizzle of tacos, and the chatter of artists, tourists, and locals weaving through the narrow streets. Dusk painted the sky in pinks and purples, the neon lights of the murals flickering to life, casting a glow that made everything feel alive, electric. Nyla Thompson stepped into the chaos, her floral dress catching the breeze, the hem brushing her knees, her curly hair loose and wild, framing her face like a crown. At 32, she knew how to move through a crowd head high, unbothered, but tonight, her stomach was a knot, tangled with nerves and something she didn't dare name. Carter Reed was meeting her here, in her world, where she'd once snapped photos with a second-hand camera, dreaming of a life that didn't revolve around delivery routes and past-due bills. Zoe bounced beside her, 7 years old and all energy, her pigtails swinging as she clutched a disposable camera Nyla had dug out of a drawer. "Mommy, can I take a picture of the big heart mural, the one with the wings?" Zoe's eyes, bright as her dad's used to be, sparkled under the streetlights. "Sure, baby," Nyla said, her smile soft but strained. She'd brought Zoe to keep things safe, to remind herself this wasn't a date, just a meet-up. Carter Reed, with his penthouse and his millions, didn't belong in her life, not with Zoe to protect, not with the scars Michael's death had left, but the paper heart in her pocket. Zoe's love folded tight, felt heavier tonight, like it was pulling her toward something she couldn't outrun. Tasha, Nyla's older sister, trailed behind, her lawyer heels clicking on the pavement, her eyes scanning the crowd like she was ready to cross-examine it. "You sure about this?" Tasha asked, adjusting her sunglasses despite the fading light. "This Carter guy's got complication written all over him. He's just—" "I don't know," Nyla said, her voice low so Zoe wouldn't hear. He brought back Zoe's heart, apologized. Ain't like him to do that. "Tash?" Tasha snorted, tossing her braids. "Rich boys love a chase. Don't let him play you." Nyla didn't answer, her eyes catching a figure in the crowd. Carter Reed stood by a mural of a flamingo, his linen shirt open at the collar, jeans hugging his frame, his gray-green eyes locking on her like she was the only damn thing in Miami. He looked out of place, not flashy, but too polished for Winwood's grit, and yet, the way he moved toward her, steady, purposeful, made her pulse kick up like a bass line. "Nyla," he said, his voice a low rumble that cut through the music, his smile small but real. "You look... damn. You look good." "Don't start," she said. But her lips twitched, betraying her. "This is Zoe, my girl, and Tasha, my sister. Family's non-negotiable, so you better be cool with it." Carter crouched to Zoe's level, his grin softening. "Hey, Zoe, that camera's pretty sweet. You an artist like your mom." Zoe beamed, holding up the camera. "I take pictures. Mommy says I got an eye. Want to see the heart mural? It's got wings." "Lead the way," Carter said, standing, his eyes flicking to Nyla with a warmth that made her skin prickle. Tasha gave him a once-over. Her eyebrow arched, but stayed quiet, trailing them like a hawk. They followed Zoe through the crowd, her chatter filling the air murals. School, her friend Tyler's bad cartwheels. Nyla watched Carter, expecting him to zone out, but he listened, asking Zoe questions, even laughing when she called his sneakers too clean for art. The neon lights bathed them in pinks and blues, the smell of paint and fried dough thick in the air, and Nyla felt a pull, like the night was weaving them closer than she'd planned. At the heart mural, a giant red heart with angel wings splashed across a warehouse wall. Zoe snapped photos, her tongue poking out in focus. Carter stood beside Nyla, close enough that his arm brushed hers, the contact sending a spark through her. "She's something else," he said, his voice soft, his eyes on Zoe, but meant for Nyla. "Takes after you." Nyla's chest tightened, his words hitting deeper than they should. "She's my whole damn world," she said, her voice steady but raw. "Everything I do's for her. You get that I do," he said, turning to face her, his gaze intense, like he was seeing through her walls. "I didn't have that growing up. My mom tried, but I was too busy chasing deals to see it. Lost her before I could fix it." The confession caught her off guard, a crack in his polished armor. She wanted to push back, keep her distance, but the way he looked at her like he was laying himself bare made it hard. "That why you're here?" she asked, her voice low, trying to fix something. "Maybe," he said, his smile faint, almost sad. "Or maybe you're just hard to forget." Her breath hitched, the air between them charged, the R&B bass thumping like a second heartbeat. Before she could respond, a familiar voice cut through. "Yo!" Nyla Derek Hayes pushed through the crowd, his elite express cap tilted, his grin wide but his eyes narrowing when he saw Carter. "Didn't know you were bringing company." "Derek," Nyla said, her tone a warning, but she couldn't stop the tension spiking. "Carter's checking out Wynwood. Zoe's idea." Derek nodded, but his gaze flicked to Carter, sizing him up. "Cool, cool, cool. Zoe's got a school art show next week. Right, I was thinking me and you could take her. Make it a thing." Nyla's stomach twisted, Derek's words carrying a weight she hadn't faced before. He'd been her rock since high school, always there. But lately, his looks lingered, his jokes felt heavier. "We'll see." "D," she said, keeping it light. But her eyes flicked to Carter, whose jaw tightened, his posture stiffening. "Art show sounds fun," Carter said, his voice calm but edged, stepping closer to Nyla. "Mind if I tag along? Zoe's got a hell of a spark." Derek's grin didn't reach his eyes. "Sure, man. Long as you don't mind getting out of that penthouse for a kid's gig." "Enough," Nyla snapped, her voice low, cutting through their bullshit. "Zoe's right there, and I ain't dealing with y'all acting like damn roosters." Zoe, oblivious, ran back, waving her camera. "Mommy, I got the heart. Can Carter take a picture with us?" Nyla hesitated, but Zoe's pleading eyes won. "Fine, baby. One picture." She handed the camera to Derek, who took it with a forced smile, framing Nyla, Zoe, and Carter in front of the winged heart. Carter's hand brushed Nyla's waist as they posed, a light touch that sent heat through her, and she caught his eye, a flicker of something dangerous passing between them. "Say, Wynwood," Derek called, but his voice was tight, and the click of the camera felt like a gunshot. After the photo, Zoe dragged Tasha to a food truck for empanadas, leaving Nyla and Carter alone by the mural. The crowd thinned, the music slowing to a sultry R&B track, and Nyla felt the night shift, like the world was holding its breath. "You didn't have to do that," she said, crossing her arms, her dress catching the neon glow. "Getting in Derek's face like that." "He started it," Carter said, stepping closer, his voice low, teasing, but serious. "But I meant it about the art show. I want to be there. For Zoe. For you." Her heart thudded, his words pulling at her like a tide. "You don't get it, Carter. Zoe's my everything. If I let you in and you fuck it up, she's the one who gets hurt. I can't risk that." He nodded, his eyes steady, not backing down. "I get it. Nyla, I don't know shit about kids, but I know you're a hell of a mom. I'm not here to mess that up. I want a chance to know you, both of you." The sincerity in his voice cracked her open, and she hated how much she wanted to believe him. The music shifted, a slow beat that made her hips sway, and Carter held out a hand, his grin daring. "Dance with me, Nyla. One song, no strings." She should have said no, walked away, kept her walls up, but the neon lights, the heat of his gaze, the pull of the music, it was too much. She took his hand, her fingers curling into his, and he pulled her close, their bodies swaying to the rhythm. His other hand found her hip, fingers pressing through the thin fabric of her dress, tracing the curve with a slow, deliberate touch that sent a shiver through her. The bass thumped low, vibrating through her chest, and the neon heart behind them pulsed pink, bathing their faces in light. Her hands slid to his shoulders, feeling the muscle beneath his shirt, and she leaned in, her breath grazing his jaw, the faint stubble rough against her cheek. "Don't make me regret this, Reed," she murmured, her lips close to his ear, the heat of his skin making her dizzy. "I won't," he said, his voice a growl, his hand tightening on her hip, pulling her closer until there was no space left. The world narrowed to the beat, their breaths sinking, the electric hum of the night wrapping them tight. Her curls brushed his arm, and for a moment she let herself fall, let the music and his touch drown out the fear. Zoe's voice broke the spell. "Mommy, I got empanadas." Nyla pulled back, breathless, her cheeks warm. Carter's hand lingering a second too long before he let go. Zoe ran up, oblivious, holding a greasy paper bag, Tasha smirking behind her. "Nice moves." "Sis?" Tasha said. Her eyebrow arched, and Nyla shot her a look that could have melted steel. Carter grinned, unfazed, crouching to Zoe. "Empanadas. Huh? Save me one." "Maybe." Zoe giggled, then tugged Nyla's hand. "Can we go see the star mural now?" "Yeah, baby," Nyla said, her voice steadier than she felt. She glanced at Carter, his eyes still on her, a promise in them she wasn't ready to trust. "Tomorrow's the art show," she said, her tone firm. "You want to be there? You show up for Zoe, not just me." "I'll be there," he said, no hesitation, his voice low. "Sure, for both of you." She nodded, turning to follow Zoe, Tasha at her side, but her heart was racing, Carter's touch still burning on her hip. The neon lights faded behind her, But the heat of that dance, the weight of his words, clung to her like Miami's summer air. She was in deeper than she'd meant to be. And the scariest part, she wasn't sure she wanted to climb out. The Miami Art Museum glowed like a jewel against the night sky, its white marble facade lit up with soft gold lights, a beacon of wealth in the heart of downtown. Inside, the grand ballroom was a sea of excess chandeliers dripping crystals, tables draped in silk, the air heavy with the scent of vintage wine and designer perfume. Nyla Thompson stepped through the arched entrance on Carter Reed's arm, her sapphire gown shimmering under the lights, the fabric hugging her curves like a lover's touch. At 32, she carried herself with a quiet strength, her curly hair swept up, a silver necklace glinting against her dark skin, but her deep brown eyes flickered with unease. This wasn't her world. Her world was delivery routes, Zoe's art projects, and the hum of Overtown streets. Tonight, she was a stranger in a gilded cage, and every step felt like a test. Carter, 38, looked like he was born for this, his black tuxedo tailored to perfection, his gray-green eyes scanning the room with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. But his hand on Nyla's lower back was steady, grounding, a silent promise that he had her. "You're stealing the show," he murmured, his voice low, warm, brushing her ear like a caress. "Bullshit," Nyla said, her lips twitching, but her stomach churned. "These folks are staring because I don't belong here. Carter, don't pretend you don't see it. You belong wherever I am," he said, his tone firm, his eyes locking on hers, daring her to argue. "And you look like a damn queen." She wanted to believe him, wanted to lean into the heat of his words, but the whispers followed her like shadows. Heads turned socialites in glittering gowns, investors with Rolexes, all sizing her up, their eyes asking the same question: who's the black woman with Carter Reed? She straightened, her chin high, refusing to shrink. She'd faced worse than their stairs' eviction notices, hospital bills, the ache of Michael's absence. This was just another fight. The ballroom buzzed with the clink of champagne flutes and the soft hum of a string quartet, the kind of elegance that made Nyla's sneakers and delivery van feel a world away. Carter guided her through the crowd, introducing her to business partners, charity board members, each handshake polite but laced with curiosity. "Nyla Thompson, my guest," he said, his voice proud, but she caught the side glances, the raised eyebrows, the unspoken delivery driver. Then she saw her, Melissa Patterson, Carter's ex, glided toward them like a shark in a red gown, her blonde hair swept up, her smile sharp as a blade. "Carter, darling," she said, air kissing his cheeks, her eyes sliding to Nyla like she was sizing up prey. And Nyla, was it? How charming to see you here. "Melissa," Nyla said, her voice cool, her grip on Carter's arm tightening. "Nice dress. Looks expensive." Melissa's laugh was like breaking glass. "It is, but you're pulling off that thrift store chic quite well." Her tone dripped condescension, and Nyla's jaw clenched, her fingers itching to wipe that smirk off. Carter's hand tensed on her back, his voice low, warning. "Melissa, enough." "Oh, I'm just teasing," Melissa said, waving a manicured hand. But her eyes were cold, calculating. It's so refreshing to see you with someone. Different. Carter. Before Nyla could fire back, a new figure approached, and the air shifted. Eleanor Reed, Carter's mother, moved with the grace of old money, her silver gown catching the light, her face a mask of polite disdain. At 60, she was a forced chairwoman of half the city's charities, a widow who'd built the Reed name into a dynasty. Carter, darling, she said, her voice smooth but edged, ignoring Nyla at first. Senator Williams is waiting to discuss your downtown project. Mother, Carter said, his tone firm, pulling Nyla closer. This is Nyla Thompson. Nyla, my mother, Eleanor Reed. Nyla extended a hand, her smile tight but steady. Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Reed. Eleanor took her hand briefly, her grip cool, her eyes flicking over Nyla like she was cataloging flaws. How interesting, she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. And how did you meet my son, Miss Thompson? Delivered a package to his office, Nyla said, her voice even, refusing to flinch. Dropped something important. He brought it back. Eleanor's eyebrow arched, a flicker of surprise or disapproval crossing her face. Serendipitous, she said, her tone clipped. Carter. The senator's waiting. I'm sure Miss Thompson won't mind. Carter hesitated, his eyes searching Nyla's. A silent question. She nodded, her voice low. Go. I'll be fine. I'll be quick, he promised, squeezing her hand before following Eleanor, his broad shoulders cutting through the crowd. Nyla watched him go, her chest tight, the weight of the room pressing in. Melissa lingered, sipping champagne, her smile predatory. You're wasting your time. You know, Melissa said, her voice low, casual, like she was discussing the weather. Carter's going through a phase, slumming it with the help. He'll come back to his world, our world, when he's done playing. Nyla's blood ran hot, but she kept her face neutral, her voice a blade. Funny. You sound scared he won't. Maybe you don't know him as well as you think. Melissa's eyes narrowed, but before she could retort, a flash went off nearby. A photographer, badge pinned to his jacket, snapped a photo of Nyla, then another, his lens trained on her like she was a circus act. Smile, sweetheart, he said, smirking. This'll look great in tomorrow's Harold Reed's Mystery Woman. Nyla's stomach dropped, her hands clenching the folds of her gown. She wasn't just out of place, she was a headline, a scandal waiting to happen. The whispers grew louder, a murmur rippling through the crowd, and she caught fragments. Delivery girl, charity case, gold digger. Her eyes darted to Carter, still deep in conversation with the senator. Eleanor at his side, her hand on his arm like a leash. He hadn't seen the photographer, hadn't heard the whispers. He wasn't here. She turned, her heels clicking on the marble, and pushed through the crowd, the air suffocating, the chandeliers too bright. She needed out, needed to breathe, to remember who she was. The balcony doors loomed ahead, and she slipped through, the night air hitting her like a lifeline, cool and salty with the faint crash of waves from the nearby coast. Miami's skyline glittered below. a city that didn't care about her. And she gripped the railing, her knuckles tight, her gown shimmering under the moonlight. Isla Carter's voice cut through the quiet, urgent. His footsteps heavy as he followed her onto the balcony. What happened? "You okay?" She spun, her eyes blazing, the hurt spilling out. "Okay. Your world's spitting on me. Carter. Photographers snapping pics like I'm some fucking sideshow. Your ex calling me the help, and your mom looking at me like I'm dirt. Where the hell were you?" His face fell, guilt flashing in his gray-green eyes, but he stepped closer, his voice raw. "I fucked up. Isla. I didn't see it. I should have been there. Shut it down. You're not dirt. You're my damn heart." Her throat tightened, his words hitting like a wave. But the pain was still fresh, sharp. Words ain't enough. "Carter, you're supposed to have my back, not leave me to fend for myself in this snake pit." He closed the distance, his hands finding her arms, pulling her into him, his body warm, solid against the cool night. "You're my everything, Isla," he murmured, his lips brushing her temple, his breath hot on her skin. His arms wrapped around her from behind, one hand splaying across her waist, fingers pressing through the satin gown, molding to her curves. The city's lights sparkled below, the distant crash of waves sinking with their ragged breaths, and the moonlight bathed them in silver, casting their shadows long and tangled. Her skin burned where he touched, a fire she couldn't douse, and she leaned into him, her hands gripping his forearms, feeling the muscle beneath his tucks. "I need you to fight for me," she said, her voice trembling, turning in his arms to face him, their faces inches apart, the chandelier's glow spilling through the doors, catching the tears in her eyes. "For me and Zoe. Or we're done." "I will," he said, his voice a vow, his forehead resting against hers, his hands tightening on her waist. "I'm yours, Isla, all in." The moment stretched, charged, the waves' rhythm a heartbeat in the dark. She wanted to believe him, wanted it so bad it hurt. But the photographer's flash, Melissa's sneer, Eleanor's cold stare, they were a wall she couldn't climb. She pulled back, her hands shaking, the cool air rushing between them. "Prove it," she said, her voice steady now, her eyes locked on his. "Zoe's art show's tomorrow. Be there. And when this shit hits the papers, you better stand up for me. Carter, no half-assing it." He nodded, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with something fierce, unshakable. "I'll be there, and I'll fix this, Isla, whatever it takes." She turned, stepping back into the ballroom, the crowd's hum swallowing her, her gown trailing like a comet's tail. Carter followed, his presence a shadow at her back, but the weight of the night clung to her. Heavy as the Miami heat, her phone buzzed in her clutch. Tasha, texting, "You good? Sis, this rich boy better not fuck you over." Isla didn't reply, her heart too raw, her mind replaying Carter's touch, his promise, the way he'd looked at her, like she was the only thing that mattered. But this world, his world, had shown its claws, and she wasn't sure she or Zoe could survive its bite. The Overtown neighborhood was a heartbeat of Miami, its streets alive with the hum of life, kids laughing. Reggaeton spilling from open windows, the faint smell of soul food drifting through the humid air. But tonight, a tropical storm rolled in, rain pounding the cracked sidewalks, turning the world into a blur of water and shadow. Nyla Thompson stood in her small apartment, the living room lit by a single lamp, its warm glow fighting the gloom outside. At 32, she was a pillar of strength, her braids loose, her worn t-shirt and jeans a stark contrast to last night's sapphire gown. But her deep brown eyes were stormy, shadowed by the hurt of the Gala Melissa's venom. Eleanor's cold disdain, the photographer's flash that turned her into a headline. Worst of all, Carter Reed's absence when she needed him most. She moved to the kitchen, checking Zoe's homework on the table, her fingers brushing the paper heart tucked in her pocket. Zoe, 7 and fast asleep in her room, was her anchor, her reason to keep fighting. But the Miami Herald article online today, Reed's charity case, with a photo of her looking like a deer in headlights, had cut deep, exposing her to a world that didn't want her. She'd told Carter to prove himself at Zoe's art show tomorrow. But doubt gnawed at her. Could he stand up to his world? Could she risk Zoe's heart or her own on a man who lived in a penthouse she'd never belong in? Her phone buzzed. Tasha, her sister, texting. "You sure about this art show? Sis, that rich boy better not leave you hanging again." Nyla didn't reply, her chest tight. She'd spent the day at the Overtown Baptist Church, singing Wade in the Water with the choir, the gospel notes grounding her like they always did. But even that hadn't dulled the ache. She pulled a folded letter from her bag, a note from Miss Clara, a hospice patient she'd cared for years ago, slipped to her by a friend, love fiercely. "Child, don't let fear steal your fire." The words stung, echoing the choice she faced: run from Carter or fight for something real. A knock at the door startled her, sharp against the rain's roar. She frowned, glancing at the clock, 9:30 p.m. Zoe was asleep, and nobody dropped by this late in Overtown. She crossed the room, her bare feet soft on the worn carpet, and opened the door a crack, her heart lurching when she saw him. Carter Reed stood under the dripping awning, soaked to the bone, his black shirt clinging to his chest, rain streaming down his face. His gray-green eyes burned with something raw, desperate, like he'd run through the storm to get here. "Nyla," he said, his voice rough, barely audible over the thunder. "I fucked up. Let me make it right." Her breath caught, anger and longing colliding. "What the hell you doing here, Carter? It's pouring, and I ain't in the mood for more promises." He stepped closer, water dripping onto the doorstep, his hands clenched like he was holding himself back. "I'm not here for promises. I'm here for you, for Zoe. I should have shut that gala down, Melissa. My mom, that damn photographer. I left you to face it alone, and I hate myself for it." Her eyes narrowed, but his words cracked her open, the sincerity in them hard to deny. "You think showing up looking like a drowned rat fixes that your world chewed me up? Carter called me a gold digger, a charity case, and you were too busy playing CEO to notice." "I noticed," he said, his voice breaking, stepping under the awning until he was close enough for her to feel the heat of him. Despite the rain, I saw it, and I didn't act fast enough. I'm done with that shit. Nyla. I walked away from a deal today, 10 million. A hospital chain that wanted to screw over low-income patients. I did it because of you, because you showed me what's real. Her heart stuttered, his words slicing through her defenses. You did what I'm building houses now, he said. His eyes locked on hers, fierce, unyielding. Affordable ones. For folks like you, like your neighbors. I don't give a damn about the money. I care about you. About us. The rain pounded harder. A roar that drowned out the world, and Nyla's chest tightened, torn between the hurt and the pull of his honesty. She wanted to push him away, to protect Zoe, to shield her own heart from breaking again. But his eyes, raw and open, held her. And she saw the man beneath the tuxedo, the one who'd danced with her under Winwood's neon, who'd laughed with Zoe like he meant it. You can't just say all the right shit and expect me to forget, she said, her voice trembling, stepping onto the porch, the rain misting her skin. I trusted you, Carter, and you let me down. I got Zoe to think about. I can't keep fighting to be seen. He dropped to his knees, right there in the puddles, his hands hovering like he was afraid to touch her, his shirt plastered to his skin, rain streaming down his face. I see you, Nyla, he said, his voice raw, pleading. I see the woman who carries her kid's heart in her pocket, who works her ass off and still shines. I was a damn idiot to let you walk away, and I'll spend my life making it right if you let me. Her breath caught, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks, his words shattering her walls. The lamp's glow spilled through the open door, painting his face in gold and shadow, and she saw the truth in him. No games, no bullshit. Just a man who'd run through a storm to reach her. She stepped forward, her hands trembling, and pulled him to his feet, her fingers digging into his wet arms. Don't break my heart. Carter, she whispered, her voice a fragile thread. Don't break Zoe's. Never. Baby, he said, and then his lips crashed into hers. A kiss that stole her breath, deep and desperate. Like he'd been starving for her, the rain poured around them, soaking her t-shirt, her jeans, plastering her braids to her face. But she didn't care. His hands cupped her cheeks, thumbs brushing her tears, rain mingling with their kiss. And she pressed herself closer, her body molding to his, the heat of his skin searing through the wet fabric. Her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him deeper. And a soft moan escaped her throat, swallowed by the thunder's rumble. The street lamps' dim light flickered, casting their shadows in a wild dance across the porch, and the scent of rain and asphalt wrapped them tight. The world narrowing to the thud of their hearts, the slick press of their lips. She pulled back, gasping, her lips swollen, her eyes blazing. You mean this, she said, her voice hoarse, searching his face for any hint of a lie, her hands still gripping his shoulders, feeling the muscle beneath his drenched shirt. More than anything, he said, his forehead resting against hers, his breath warm on her rain-soaked skin. I love you, Nyla. I'm not going anywhere. The words hit like lightning, heavy, electric, and for the first time, she believed him not because he was perfect, but because he was here, kneeling in the mud, fighting for her in a way Michael never had to, in a way Derek never could. She stepped back, her hands still on his arms, grounding herself against the storm in her chest. "Zoe's art show's tomorrow," she said, her voice firm but soft. "You show up, Carter, and you better be ready to stand up to your world, 'cause I ain't facing that shit alone again. Name the time and place," he said, his eyes never leaving hers, a small smile breaking through the rain. "I'm all in." She nodded, wiping her tears, the rain slowing to a soft patter. The street lamp's glow steady now. "This is your last shot," she said. But the edge in her voice was gone, replaced by something warmer, something that felt like hope. He reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek, wiping away a raindrop. The touch gentle but searing. "I won't let you down," he said. And she felt the weight of his promise, heavy as the heart in her pocket. As he stepped back into the rain, his silhouette sharp against the wet street. Nyla leaned against the doorframe, her heart pounding. Her phone buzzed again. Derek, texting. "Heard about the gala shit. You okay? I'm here, Nyla. Okay, I'm here." She stared at the screen, torn between the safety of Derek's friendship and the fire Carter had ignited. She slipped the phone into her pocket, untouched, and closed the door, the rain's rhythm fading behind her. Zoe's art show was tomorrow, and with it, a chance for Carter to prove he was more than words, more than a billionaire playing at love. She touched the heart in her pocket, Zoe's love steadying her. But Carter's kiss lingered, a storm she couldn't outrun. South Beach was Miami's crown jewel, a stretch of golden sand kissed by turquoise waves. The horizon ablaze with a sunset that painted the sky in hues of coral and gold. The air was thick with salt, sunscreen, and the faint hum of a steel drum band playing down the shore, their rhythms weaving through the laughter and chatter of a small family gathering. Nyla Thompson stood at the heart of it, her white sundress fluttering in the breeze, the hem grazing her calves, her curly hair loose and catching the fading light like a halo. At 32, she was a vision of resilience, her deep brown eyes soft with a joy she hadn't felt in years, her silver necklace glinting against her skin. The paper heart, Zoe's gift, was tucked in her pocket, a quiet reminder of the journey that brought her here to a new home, a new life, and a love she'd fought like hell to trust. Carter Reed was by her side, his linen shirt rolled to his elbows, khaki shorts showing off tanned legs, a far cry from the tuxedoed CEO she'd met 6 months ago. He tossed a frisbee to Zoe, his laugh carrying over the waves, his gray-green eyes crinkling with a warmth that made Nyla's heart skip. The man who'd once lived for deals and penthouses was now barefoot in the sand, joking with her 7-year-old like he'd been born for it. Their new home, a modern bungalow near Wynwood, not too big, not too small, was a symbol of their compromise. A place where Zoe's art covered the walls and Carter's dreams of affordable housing took root. The beach was alive with their chosen family. Tasha, Nyla's sister, lounged on a blanket, sipping a mojito, her lawyer sharpness softened by the sun. Joe, the elite cafe owner, manned a grill, flipping burgers with a grin, his salt and pepper beard catching the light. Derek Hayes, Nyla's best friend, kicked a soccer ball with neighborhood kids, his easy laugh hiding the bittersweet ache of letting Nyla go. And Eleanor Reed, Carter's mother, sat under a canopy, her silver gown traded for a flowy dress. Her once cold eyes softened as she watched Zoe draw in the sand. It had taken months, Zoe's charm, Isla's strength, Carter's resolve, but Eleanor had come around. Her acceptance sealed by a drawing Zoe gave her. A family portrait with Grandma Ellie in the center. Isla handed out plates of jerk chicken and cornbread, her movements easy, her smile real. The gala's sting, the Herald's cruel headline, felt like another life now. Carter had proved himself at Zoe's art show, standing by her side as cameras flashed, shutting down whispers with a public statement, "Isla Thompson's my partner, my home. Anyone got a problem? Take it up with me." He'd faced his board, his mother, the world, and chosen her, chosen Zoe, every damn time. "Girl, you're glowing," Tasha said, nudging Isla as she passed. "This beach life suits you. Or is it that man making you shine?" Isla laughed, glancing at Carter, who was now building a sandcastle with Zoe, his hands covered in grit. "Maybe both," she admitted, her voice soft. "Took a hell of a fight to get here." "Tash." "Worth it," Tasha said, squeezing her hand. "You built something real." The steel drums shifted to a slower tune, a cover of Bob Marley's Is This Love, and Isla felt a pull, like the ocean itself was calling her. Carter caught her eye, wiping sand from his hands, and walked over, his grin mischievous. "Dance with me, Isla," he said, holding out a hand, his voice low, teasing. "One more time." She raised an eyebrow, playful. "You think you can keep up with an Overtown girl on her turf?" "Try me," he said, pulling her close, their bodies swaying to the rhythm. The sand was warm under her bare feet, the waves' steady crash sinking with their steps, and his hands settled on her hips, fingers tracing the curve through her dress, a touch that sent heat through her, her arms looped around his neck, her curls brushing his cheek, and the sunset's glow bathed them, turning their skin to gold. The crowd's chatter faded, the world narrowing to the beat, their breaths, the way his eyes held hers like she was the only damn thing that mattered. "You're getting too good at this," she murmured, her lips close to his ear, a smile tugging at her mouth. "Got a hell of a teacher," he said, his voice a growl, his fingers tightening on her hips, pulling her closer. "You're my home, Isla." Her heart thudded, his words sinking deep, and she leaned into him, letting the moment hold her. But Zoe's giggle broke the spell, her small figure darting over, sand clinging to her knees. "Mommy Carter, come see my castle. It's got a moat." Isla laughed, stepping back. But Carter kept her hand, lacing their fingers as they followed Zoe. The castle was a lopsided masterpiece. Shells for towers, a twig flag waving proudly. "Damn, Zoe," Carter said, crouching beside her. "You're gonna put my architects out of a job." Zoe beamed, handing him a shell. "You can help, but don't mess it up." The crowd gathered, the drums fading as the sun dipped lower, the sky a blaze of orange. Isla felt a shift, a quiet settling over the beach, like the world was holding its breath. Carter stood, brushing sand from his hands, and turned to her. His eyes different now, serious, almost nervous. He took her hands, his grip warm, steady, and the crowd hushed, sensing something big. "Nyla Thompson," he said, his voice clear, carrying over the waves. "6 months ago, you walked into my office, dropped a paper heart, and turned my whole damn world upside down. You showed me what love looks like: fierce, real, unbreakable. You and Zoe gave me a home, a reason to be better." Her breath caught, her heart pounding as he dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. The crowd gasped, Zoe squealing, and Nyla's eyes widened, tears pricking as he opened the box. Inside was a silver ring, etched with a tiny heart like Zoe's. Simple, but perfect. "You're my heart, my fire, my everything," he said, his voice breaking, raw with emotion. "Marry me. Nyla, be my family. Forever." The sunset flared, bathing them in gold. The waves crash, a heartbeat in the silence. Nyla's tears spilled over, her hands trembling in his, and she saw their journey flash before her: the rain-soaked office, the Wynwood dance, the gala's pain, the kiss that sealed them in a storm. She'd been scared to love again, to risk Zoe's heart, but Carter had fought for them. Not with money, but with his soul, building a life where she and Zoe belonged. "Yes," she said, her voice clear, strong, cutting through the crowd's cheers. "Hell yes, Carter." He slid the ring onto her finger, his hands shaking, and stood, pulling her into a kiss that drowned out the world. Her arms wrapped around his neck, her body pressing against his, and the crowd roared, the drums striking up a triumphant beat. His lips were warm, tasting of salt and promise, and she felt his heartbeat through his shirt, a steady anchor. The sand was soft under their feet, the sunset's glow fading to twilight, and the scent of sea and smoke wrapped them in a cocoon of home. They pulled back, breathless, foreheads touching, and Nyla laughed, a sound bright as the Miami sky. "You're stuck with me now. Read," she said, her voice thick with joy, the ring heavy on her finger. "Good," he said, his grin wide, his hands still on her waist. "Ain't nowhere else I'd rather be." Zoe barreled into them, hugging their legs. "We're a family now," she shouted, and the crowd laughed, Tasha whooping like a teenager. Joe clapped Carter's shoulder, saying, "Took you long enough, man." And Derek raised a beer, his smile genuine despite the ache in his eyes. Eleanor approached, her face soft, and handed Zoe a small canvas, a painting of the three of them, commissioned from a Wynwood artist. "For my granddaughter," she said, her voice warm, and Nyla's throat tightened, the gesture sealing a bridge she'd never thought possible. As the stars emerged, the party surged back to life, music and laughter filling the night. Nyla and Carter slipped away to a quiet stretch of beach, the waves lapping at their feet. He pulled her close, their bodies swaying to the distant drums, the moonlight casting their shadows long and tangled. His hands slid to her hips, fingers tracing the curve through her dress, and he leaned in, his lips brushing her neck, a slow, deliberate kiss that made her gasp. The sand was cool under her feet, the waves' rhythm a soft pulse, and she tilted her head, her curls grazing his cheek, her hands sliding up his back, feeling the muscle beneath his shirt. "You're my damn world." "Nyla," he murmured, his breath hot against her skin, his fingers tightening on her hips. "Took a paper heart to get us here." "Huh?" She laughed, pulling back to meet his eyes, her smile teasing but full of love. "Zoe's magic's the real deal. You ready for forever? Read." "Born ready," he said, and kissed her again, lighter this time, a promise sealed in the quiet of the night. She pushed him toward the water, playful, and he laughed, pulling her with him, the waves splashing their ankles. "We got all night, Thompson," he said, and she grinned, knowing they had more than that, a lifetime. Later, they rejoined the party. Zoe curled up on Tasha's lap, asleep with a shell clutched in her hand. Nyla leaned against Carter, her head on his shoulder, the stars bright above, the air cool with the promise of a new season. She thought of Miss Clara's letter, of Michael's smile, of the patients who'd taught her life was too short for anything less than love. She'd found it with Carter not by chance, but by choice, by fighting through the doubts, the pain, the world's noise to build something unbreakable, from a paper heart to a beachside vow. Nyla and Carter built a love that shakes Miami's soul. Miami's. They fought, they fell, and they rose together, rooted in a family stronger than any storm. What's the smallest thing that changed your life? Spill it in the comments. Y'all, let's hear your stories. Smash that subscribe button for more tales that'll hit you right in the feels. Catch you next time.